Hi everyone, you're here with Talk with Ross, with me, host Ross, and today we have a special guest. Our special guest is Zoe Michaels, who's an author. So, Zoe, please introduce yourself to our guests.
Hello, as Ross said, I'm Zoe Michaels. I am an author. I have actually just started publishing my books earlier this year. I primarily write fiction, that is my first love. But my most recent book, my fourth book, is not fiction. It's actually a book based on my experiences of being scammed not once, but actually twice. And rather than just, tell all, share my experience, which there are other books out there that already do that, and there's value to that. I wanted to create a tool to help other people, first of all, recognize if their friends and family were being scammed or if they themselves were being scammed and help them figure out a way out of that. So that's led to other things, but we'll get into that in our conversation.
Brilliant, thank you. So, what led you get into the scamming anyway, the first time?
Yeah. So the first time was a good 5 years ago, maybe longer, but at least 5 years ago. We'd had a rough financial year, my husband and I, and we'd also had just a rough year personally as well. Just a difficult year, at any rate. So that is usually when things like that happen, right? When you're struggling
Mm,
financially, when you're struggling personally, it's like being a tempting target by a lion watching its prey out in the jungle. And that's kind of how it is. If you are interacting with anyone or if they're watching your Facebook page and they see signs that you might be weak or if they reach out to you, they're definitely they're going to be interested in a tempting meal, just like a lion.
yeah.
And so that was the situation with the first time. The first time I was in a weakened position trying to figure out a way to generate income using Facebook more than I would normally would have. And wound up interacting with someone in hopes that they would lead me to a customer. And no, it actually wound up being from bad to worse, actually. But it taught me something. It taught me to be a more cautious. I actually created rules for myself. I locked things down. And so for 5 years, I had peace until I broke one of my own rules.
So, what was the golden rule that you broken then?
So usually when it comes to social media, I am only ever friends or interact with people that I know personally or that I know through someone I know personally. That for me is always the
Mm,
safest way. I certainly never send money to anyone that I don't know. That's my other second big rule. And so the second time around, once again, I'm in the situation where I had been running a business. The business was doing great until it wasn't. We'll call it the COVID effect. So after doing great during the COVID period, because everyone was home, then once people started going back to work, my business was affected, kind of the reverse of what everyone was during COVID. And
yeah.
so, as business dwindled and my income dwindled, I was looking for ways to, okay, I've got to generate some income. Let's use Facebook to try to find customers. And so, once again, here I am in this situation, and someone who looked very normal, they weren't terribly attractive, but they just looked like they had an appealing personality, potential client, because at that point I was in the travel business. And I thought, okay, well, this is someone potentially a client, and they have some background that's similar to the type of people I usually would be a friend with. And they had enough history on their Facebook to not obviously be a scammer. But I've learned since then, I think that they're farming and they're building up their Facebook accounts. At least this guy
Mm,
apparently did. So something that seemed innocent quickly turned to anything but innocent.
yeah. No, and I'm truly heartfelt for you because I was scammed once, and the way I was scammed, I think it was because I was a vulnerable person. I see myself as a vulnerable person, and It's like what you said then when times are hard and money is tight and you'd do anything to sort of like get your finances sorted again. And when someone's coming to you with a golden ticket going, here, I can sort all your finances out for you,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, amazing. And the way they word things, the way they say things, it sounds so professional. And I was led to believe that was an actual company. And long story short, it wasn't, and I ended up getting in debt. I'm still paying this debt off to this day
Me
now,
too.
and I was left in thousands of pounds
Mhm.
of debt,
Yeah.
and I was like, you know, and before obviously we started recording for the podcast and everything, we had an initial chat, and it's like what I said, and I always allude, in life you live and you learn,
Yes.
and whether that's relationships, whether it's a scam, friendships as well, because you can have people who say that you're friends, but either really your friends,
Yes. Right.
they lead you onto the wrong path.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's awful, and I can really resonate with you on that one.
Absolutely.
So, with you being scammed and everything, was that the ultimate push for you writing your books and stuff?
That's the interesting thing. I have always connected to the world through writing. It's something that's always brought me pleasure. But
Yeah.
I was always too busy trying to earn a living or too busy trying to take care of my husband and what he needed. And so I never really wrote with the intent of publishing. But the silver lining of this whole being scammed situation and trying to figure out, okay, well, how do I dig myself out of the debt that this person has manipulated me into, was that I had these stories kind of in my back pocket and other stories I wanted to tell. My mind is always going like, ooh, here's an idea. Ooh, here's an idea. And it pushed me to step outside of that comfort zone of just earning a paycheck and just try to publish. Try to see
Yeah.
if maybe I could earn a living that way. And it's going to be a long term process because it just takes a while to find people who want to read your books. But I am really excited. Just this last week, um, I finalized a deal where my books are going to be at the International Book Fair in Beijing, which is the second largest international book fair in the world. They had approached
That's
me about the
amazing.
very first book I wrote, which was very flattering. So I'm really excited about that. Um, the more recent book, The Breaking Free from the Manipulations of a Scammer, this fourth book, I thought my job was done when I wrote the book. I thought, I've done my part. I'm helping people, and if they read it, they'll be able to help their friends and family. But what I learned was that as I interacted with people in groups on Facebook, because, for example, the person who scammed me, they showed up again in my feed under a different name. And I thought, well, I'm going to report this to Facebook. And Facebook will remove them, and I will have saved someone else. No, this person does not violate community standards. And so I thought, well, what else can I possibly do? Turns out there's groups in Facebook where you can, screenshot and show those profiles so that other people possibly could find those warnings. So I thought, okay, well, that's something. But as I interacted and spoke with other people within those groups, including family members who were concerned about family members that they were convinced were being scammed, I learned a
Mm.
couple of things. Number one, they care, they want answers, they're trying to figure out how to help their family member, which I think is wonderful. I think it's great. But the other people who actually either were being scammed or have been scammed was they were not liking these posts from the family members. And it's because I think it triggered them, maybe to how their family and friends reacted. And I thought to myself, there needs to be a platform where people can share their stories in a safe space without feeling like they're being judged. There needs to be a way for family and friends to understand how they can best help, and also maybe the things maybe they should or should not say or how to approach it. Because when I was being scammed more than once, I heard someone say, "We think you're being scammed," and I heard them intellectually, but in my heart, I thought, okay, well, they either don't know the full situation, they don't understand these other components, they're only hearing a portion of the story, or with the closest of my friends who truly wanted to help, they said, hey, Zoe, we think you're being scammed. And I thought to myself, because I'm unlovable. That's the only possible reason, because I'm unlovable,
Yeah.
right? And I know that intellectually that's not the case. My friends love me, so that's not the case. But in that time period, the way the manipulations work on your mind, you don't necessarily register that good, healthy thoughts. You're registering all the negative self-talk and then what the manipulator is telling you. So instead of pulling you
Yeah.
away from the manipulator, they're actually pushing you closer to the manipulator.
Mm.
So,
So
yeah.
that's very interesting. So did you interact with quite a lot of people throughout the Facebook groups?
Enough to realize that something more was needed. And I did what I could. I even made my questionnaires within my book available to them for free on my website, kind of pointed them as a potential resource. Here's something, and here's a couple of key chapters to help you maybe help with this friend. And whether or not they took it, well, I certainly hope they did. That's why I put it out there for them. But who's to say? So I thought, okay, well, this is interesting actually. I was trying to figure out how to help people. I had never ever done a podcast interview before. And
Yeah.
this really nice woman, I think she's a career coach, but she took time out of her schedule to just have a chat with me. She gave me 20 minutes of her time, didn't charge me any money, and just kind of talked to me about, what my path was, as an author and what my vision was. And she was the one who suggested being a guest on a podcast in the first place. And so I decided to take her advice and did that, had a podcast interview. And after that interview, I thought, I could do this. I could host a podcast and maybe I could create the platform where people who've been scammed can have a safe space, even if it's like blank screen and they share their story, even if they used a different, name than their real name if they felt like they needed protection. But I could do that. And more than that, I
Yeah.
could have professionals like, this is what you need to look for, and this is how you help someone in this situation, and here's how you help with the recovery. So that was my vision. And I wanted to call it Voices of the Scammed because that seemed on point. But as I've been trying to find guests for my podcast, I've had a few people respond, but I'm mostly getting feedback that either people are too shy, which I'll talk about in a minute here. We'll go back to that. But the professionals are like, well, I don't know how you want me to help these people. I'm like, oh, but you just don't know how there's so much more you could, what you've said in your profile, that's exactly what they need to hear. So I thought I
Yeah.
need to maybe take a step back and maybe broaden the name of the podcast and make it
Yeah.
more inclusive, and so that then the people will get what they need from it. But yeah, so that was interesting for me.
So obviously you mentioned about people being like feeling shy and everything. So can you allude a bit more on the
Yeah,
people being shy?
absolutely. And I understand where they're coming from. The first time I
Yeah.
was scammed, I was deeply embarrassed, deeply ashamed. Like, how on earth did I get myself into this situation? The very first time I felt that way. So, after my experience, there might have been three people in the whole world who knew that I had been scammed. Um,
Mm.
I really was not vocal about it. My experience even trying to report it to the local police left me feeling very traumatized, not helped at all. And I thought, I never want to go through this again. Therefore, the rules. um, but it was very traumatic, I felt, and very deeply embarrassing. So the second time when it happened, the initial reaction was, again, didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to say anything. Or if I had to, I was going to put it in a book and then walk away. And
Yeah.
that I think is a very natural way to feel. But as I've tried to understand things better myself as I've talked with others, as I've gradually opened up. And actually, I wrote my book before I started opening up to my best friend, before I started opening up to my siblings. Um, I was going somewhere with this. What was I going with? I've been thinking about like what are the things that lead a person to be susceptible to the manipulations. And, for example, I was raised in a very healthy environment, very stable parents, very nice siblings. I mean, from a family standpoint, I hit the jackpot. I had it really good. So how on earth
Yeah.
was I in the situation where this manipulation? But I had prolonged exposure to someone in my life who was very manipulative, and I got accustomed and even kind of deadened my senses to being manipulated. I just knew I wasn't comfortable. And I think that maybe set the stage for me then to be manipulated by these scammers. But I've put a lot of thought into the terminology. You hear the word victim. Oh, that was, they were victimized by a scammer. Um, and to my way of thinking, a victim lies down, doesn't get back up. A victim, is like a murder victim, right? They're no more,
Don't fall.
right? But
Yeah.
if we look at it from the standpoint that they were a target, they were the target of a scammer, it changes the picture a little bit. You might have a hunter who
Mm.
tries to shoot at a bird, hopefully to get a dinner, right? And maybe they just clipped the wings. The bird was its target. And so if you view yourself more as a target, and yes, your wing got clipped, but you're going to heal. You're going to move forward. You're going to use that experience and make something even better. Then it changes the picture, and that's what I want to do. That's what I'm doing. This why I'm doing this, because I had a choice after being scammed that second time. Was I going to lie down and just be a victim and let that scammer get away with it, rather than trying to, here's what they did, here's all these steps, here's things you never even imagined a scammer would do? Or am I going to speak out and make sure people know? So I decided this time I'm going to speak out, and I'm going to tell as many people as I can this is what you need to watch for. And by the way, here's some tools that I didn't have access to, but you do, so that if you have any questions, check out the book. Or AI, if the scammers are using AI to figure out how to respond to you, well, guess what? You can use AI to say, I think I might be scammed. Here's what's been happening. What do you think? Ta-da!
Yeah.
Brilliant! You know, if I'd had that thought process a year ago, or a year and a half ago, or even 5 years ago, maybe I wouldn't have been scammed. Or I would have caught it sooner.
Yeah, but it's like what you said though as well, like technology has advanced so much. I mean, like who would have thought like 10 years ago from now, like there would have been this thing called AI that can do can do most of the stuff even better than humans can do.
Mhm.
And it's scary to think that how powerful AI actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it. I'll hold up my hands. And I was one of these people. I was dead against it. I was like, AI is for cheaters. It's for lazy people. It's for slackers and this and that. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I use AI to help me with my shorts and generate
Yes.
posts and everything, because like when you get a bit of a brain fog,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, I don't know what to write. And then you just go on your little AI app or your AI website, whatever you're using, and it's just like, oh wow, like it sounds so engaging and people will wanna, it's a bit of clickbait as well, isn't it, I suppose?
I think it's a great tool. Like you, I was very slow to get around to using it. I would use it,
Mm,
occasionally for research or to polish an idea. And I try not to use it exclusively, because I think using exclusively it can be lazy, right? It's possible, just like any tool. It's all in how you use it. At the end of the day, it's a tool. And if you use the tool properly, then it's a great benefit. If you use it wrong, well, you're going to see the results that come from using it wrong. So AI, I
Yeah.
think, is a wonderful tool if it's used the right way.
No, yeah, I 100% agree on that one. And it's like what you just been saying then, you can use it correctly or incorrectly. Now, if you use it incorrectly, I believe you'll get like too laissez and too comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, like I was that skeptical at first because it's like, well, you feed in this robot all this information.
Mm-hmm.
Where's this information gonna go to? Who's gonna see it? You know what I mean? Because, you know, we can type something in Google and our data is not really it's not really kept between us who's researching it.
Mm-hmm.
Other people can see it, and it's led to believe for myself like, well, what's this stuff that you're searching for on this AI
Mm-hmm.
platform? Who's it gonna be seen by, and like, what's it gonna be used for?
Yeah.
You know, who's who's to say like these scammers
Mm-hmm.
are not using AI to like feed all this information that you're searching for
Right.
and then using it against you, and then therefore you're getting scammed
Yeah.
without realizing. Do you know what I mean? And it's just how does it work? I mean, this is how my mind works, and I don't know about anyone else who's watching right now, but I think about all these little weird scenarios and situations, and it's just like, well, what if this is happening, or what if that goes to that and leads to that, and then ultimately
Right.
here you are being scammed.
Right. And
Do you know what I
that's
mean?
where I say let's fight fire with fire. If they are using
Mm,
AI to figure out how to manipulate you better, well, then maybe we should use AI to detect and then extricate ourselves from that.
so you also mentioned as well about, going to the police.
Mm-hmm.
How useful or unuseful was the police when you told them about your situation?
Um, that first time around, like I said, it was not a good experience. I did not feel helped. What I did end up doing, since the police were not helpful at that point in time 5 years ago, was that I ended up just doing a generic FBI.gov report of what had happened, and then I left it at that. This
Mm,
time around, I've been slower because of that first experience, so I'm still dealing with the aftermath. I'm still trying to. I mean, beyond FBI.gov, I really don't know what else I'll do other than this. Because this, at least
yeah,
I'm helping people. I don't expect to recover my money. I've had people offer, but I don't even know if that's legitimate. You go onto these Facebook, scam groups to report something, and you get people saying, well, we can help you to recover your money. How do I know that you're valid? Give me some credentials.
yeah,
If you say you're an agent, prove it. If the FBI.gov says, okay, yes, this is someone who's a valid, whatever, anti scammer hack guy, okay, then, you've got some credibility, then maybe I'll consider you. But there's nothing offered in the way of credibility. And you hear enough stories from people who've been like, well, I tried their service and, you know, they never recovered anything. That they could be legitimate, they may not be legitimate. And I just don't even have an opinion one way or the other beyond the fact that I'm probably not going to try that.
yeah.
So,
See, this is the thing about social media as well, and I touched bases a little bit on my podcast previously before I changed its name and, changed the dynamics of what I'm going to do for the podcast.
mm-hmm,
And it's, it kind of like goes hand in hand because like social media, it like detaches you from the real world and you don't know what's true and you don't know what's false
mm-hmm,
because like you're going on social media, you're searching and you're seeking for help and advice and
yeah,
guidance and you're hoping you can get like something out of it, but then you're a bit dubious because like people are like, oh, well, I can help you, and then you're like, well, can you actually help me? And then your guard's up again, then really, innit? So
Mhm.
it's just like, well,
Yeah,
what am I supposed to do? And like, where are
right.
you supposed to go for like guidance and help and support? Because
Exactly.
you feel like you can't trust anyone again, then can't you?
It's so true. I actually stumbled across something one day that I didn't know even existed. Apparently, there is like this worldwide website. I think it's like romancescams.org or something like that. But apparently, it's like there's a dual website that's worldwide that's supposed to be a resource for people who have been scammed in a number of ways. That's just one of the two links. It's the more one that's easier to remember in my head, but uh, but I thought, well, that's a great resource. Why isn't that being shouted from the rooftops? Here's this big website that's resources for people who are being scammed or who are worried about people being scammed. I sure would have liked to have known about it back when that was happening to me. You hear about it here in the United States back in March, National Slam the Scam Day. But throughout that whole process, I never once heard about that website. It's like, well,
Yeah.
okay, good effort, but can we do better? I think we can do better.
I mean, I think we could all do better, with like people like yourself, because if unfortunately, people like yourself and myself, we've both been scammed, and you're doing something about it, and hats off to you for doing it, and you've gone out your way to write a book to give people this toolkit to be like, okay, I've been scammed not once but twice, and here's what you need to look out for. These are the signs, and I think it's absolutely amazing with what you've decided to do and everything. So where can people find your books? Is it online or
Yeah,
bookstores only?
it's definitely online. Amazon.com is the one that's probably the most
Biggest one.
universal, right? Um,
Yeah.
but it's also available like places like Barnes and Noble, Kobo, etc. So if you check out my webpage would then direct you. So it's zoemichaels.com is my website, which would then direct you to any of the booksellers that show that book, as well as my other books. Um, like I said, mostly I prefer fiction. This is the only nonfiction book I've written so far. I do have one more nonfiction in the hopper. It's going to be called I Am Not Your ATM. And I'm kind of looking forward to that book. I have this one story about someone being paid by it with just a banana. True story. Actually happened. They worked like 4 or 8 hours, hard physical work, and the man paid them with a banana. So gotta love
That's
it.
nuts, that.
Right? I remember
Wow.
walking away going, "What do you think I'm a monkey? And only one banana? Not even worth a bunch." But
I would ask for a bunch of bananas.
lifetime supply, even. Come on. But yeah, there's a whole story behind that one. And then this
Oh,
morning, I came up with this idea like, oh, so I have to tell you about this. So a couple of days ago, scrolling through Facebook, because I'm always looking, kind of figure out what I'm going to post and seeing what's out there. Someone had posted the idea of writing a story where the main character gradually falls in love with the reader. And initially, I'm like, how would you do that? But the more I thought about it, I thought, oh, that could be a cool kind of hook. So I've been thinking about variations on that theme. And this morning I was thinking, because I was expecting our appointment, I thought, what if that was another way to educate people about the way that a scammer manipulates? What if I wrote a book where the reader is the target and the scammer is inside the book manipulating them throughout the story? And I thought that could be interesting. I could take what happened to me as kind of a outline, I guess, for lack of a better word,
yeah.
a roadmap, and basically have the reader walk a mile in my shoes. And, you know, so I'm toying with the idea. I'm not sure what I'll call the book. Oh, don't. There we go. Okay, good. The internet was being.
It's paused on my side. What's that? Oh, there we go. Got you. We've got you. We've got you. No, we've got you back anyway. We've got you back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I really like that idea, to be honest with you. I think that'd be really, really interesting, and I think it'd be quite captivating as well for, you know, the readers as well, because, it's quite an interesting story, and it's not like I don't think it's a book that or a story that has been done personally. I mean, I wouldn't know because I don't really read books, but if someone said to me like, "Oh, I've been reading this book and it's about this, this, and this," I'd be like, "Oh, heck yeah! Let's have a read." Like, I'd give it a go. Do you know what I mean? Even though I don't read, I'd be fascinated to read about it and to learn more about it, and then a story with a twist. I think everyone loves a twist, really. No, I'm quite young. Yeah, I've seen a film that does have a bit of a twist to it. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if it's out in America, or I don't know if you can get it in America or what. It's so it's like a horror film basically, if you're into your horrors, and it's called Oculus, and it's about this these two kids who find this mirror that used to be in the house, and this mirror is possessed, and it makes them see things, do things, but there's a massive plot twist at the end, and you sat there so engrossed into this film, and you're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe all this happened." And then at the end, it's like, "What?" And you're just trying to contemplate of what's just actually happened. You're like, "Now I don't believe if it was true or false now." Do you know what I mean? Because the way it got you so hooked in and so drawn into the film itself, and then the massive plot twist happened, and then you're thrown back by it, and you're like, okay, yeah, amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So, with your podcast, is it actually been set up, or are you just contemplating it? Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. That. So, like, obviously, you said about you and your friend. It's fine, don't worry about it. Yeah. So with your episodes and everything, and you said that you're gonna have your friends script it. Just a thought here. Why don't you just do it as yourself talking, and you can just do it each episode as, you know, how the scam unfolded for your first episode, or you could do it as like season one, the folding of the scam, like, and then um yeah. So obviously you can be like, this is how I got scammed the first time, and then obviously lead into the second time it happened, and then that could be season two, and then you could have like season three, um, going into your books, and then interviews as well. So, and then episodes. It's entirely up to you how many episodes you have it on. You can have like 4 episodes to a season, like Netflix does, and just do it that way. I don't know. It was just an idea. Well, I think it's good to get ideas of other people as well, because the more you appear as a guest on other people's podcasts as well, I'm sure other people will give you some like pointers and tips and advice on, setting up your own podcast. You've got your books out there, so you can talk about your books on your podcast, or you could, like I said, obviously you could talk about the the step-by-step process of how you got scammed and everything, and then lead into interviews as well. Because if you want to bulk bulk it your episodes, then I personally will talk about your own stories first, and then, because if you're talking about yourself and then you're, showing yourself to other people, and you're like, well, here's my platform, go and tune in, go and give it a listen, and people will be like, oh well, she's actual, genuine and everything, she's not gonna sit here, fob us off, and be like, oh yeah, I understand when you don't understand, and people that want to connect with authenticity and, like, you know, true stories, I suppose. Yeah. No, you're very welcome. And I just want to say I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I don't know what time it is over there. It's okay. Well, what I am going to do is I am going to wrap up the episode now and everything. So I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who had just tuned into this episode. I hope you all take something away with what Zoe and myself have been talking about. So before I do go, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just gonna ask Zoe if you wanna share anything before we go. If you wanna give any websites out, any tips and advice the listeners? Please. Which I've already listened to, and it's quite good. It's really good. But what I'll do is as well is some of the websites that you've mentioned to us all on the episode. What I'll do is I'll get them off you privately on Messenger. So if you send them all over a Messenger, I can put them on the description of the video so people can look at the websites, go on your pages as well, so they can interact with you. If there's anything that you want leaving on there, so people can contact you personally. You never know, people might want to come on to your podcast from being on my podcast, and fingers crossed, some people do come forward and be like, "Oh well, it's happened to me, so I want to come on and talk about my story." When you're up and ready and you're ready for people to interview, you can always interview me. I'm more than happy to come on. Obviously, I've been scammed myself, so I'll come on. Yeah, yeah. So you can just message me when you're up and running, and we'll get something booked in. And you too. Thank you for your time anyway. Cheers. There you go. Done dusted now.